Hello and welcome, Exiles, to the updated guide for the Energy Blade Inquisitor. This time, after the nerfs, we have become stronger. Now that might not sound like that makes sense, but it does. I took time to look at the character and rebuild it from the ground up with a few different options, and I discovered a better way to make the character thanks to a new, lower level requirement, more common item than the T3 Ivory Tower. You heard that right. Ivory Tower has been officially retired for Energy Blade. I don't know how this happened, but there's actually a better way to do things than Ivory Tower, and that's a little bit crazy coming from me considering my crippling Ivory Tower addiction, which is completely overstated because, let's be real, I've played Ivory Tower like twice in the past 2 years, but I digress. Now let's get into the character as a whole. What did we change? What all is going on here? Now you may notice, looking at this POB, we got a lot of damage, and now I can start messing with Connor about the 3 comma thing, because let's be real, it's not that hard to get 3 commas if you start editing items in POB. But anyways, besides that point, we have a much more reasonable character right now that I'm going to show you, which has still pretty respectable damage, and it's going to sound a lot more respectable when I show you the gear we're working with. So I am showcasing Incinerated Venting in POB specifically because it's just a good benchmark try-hard POB warrior skill. Quite frankly, it has like 2,000 effectiveness while every other spell in the game has like 500%. So if you swap in pretty much any other skill, it's going to deal like 1/4 to 1/2 the damage of Venting. And I'm just showing that as the baseline. The character works, and the scaling for this build is universal no matter what spell you want to play. And I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of a demonstration of the character, and then let's talk about the mechanics behind the build. So to start off with, I'm going to showcase killing let's just do a regular base eater to give you guys a baseline of what the character looks like, and then we'll talk about the gear, what's putting it together, and some comparisons to Ivory Tower, because I did set up some other versions when I went to test this stuff to see where the build is falling in terms of power level. Now he wanted to phase early because he was afraid of us, and he's stalling, but that's okay. I'm sure this video won't get too long, probably, maybe, I don't know, it might get kind of long. Now one thing you'll notice right there is my damage when I was fighting him when he was here was much higher. The skill I'm testing right now is Eye of Winter, which gives you much heavier damage if the enemy's like at the end of the Eye of Winter. If the enemy's in the middle, you'll lose damage because it gains more damage as it goes farther away. So that's why I did so much more damage there. Also, he starts out with a little bit of DR, but anyways, I just wanted to clarify what was happening there. Now, as for the character's gear, what are we wearing on this build? This is a 3-stat pair of gloves, 4-stat pair of boots, 3-stat pair of gloves, 3-stat as in 3 mods: life, strength, regenerate, and then benchcraft. So 3 plus benchcraft is what I'm saying, like just 3 regular mods are on there. Ring is, I think, roughly a 4-stat, 3-stat, 4-stat. You get the idea. Anyways, this is the character's gear. It's some pretty basic life gear with regenerate. And then for our tree, this is 2 module, or 3 module because it's max res, res plus life, 2 module. And I am simulating a nerfed Foulborn Red Dream. I'm estimating in the first week this character you could probably put together in the range of 10 to 20D. I'm sure there's somebody in the YouTube comments that are going to want to debate that. Think whatever you want. This is the gear I'm showcasing. I don't think it's particularly strong, and the results are quite strong to back it up, because this character can easily do Ubers at this level of gearing, which in my opinion is very good for the price point. Now, let's talk about how does Energy Blade work as a whole. Energy Blade is pretty simple. You, where the hell is it? You turn it on, and it takes half of your energy shield. It cuts your energy shield in half, and then it says, based on your energy shield, I'm going to give you a lightsaber that does a portion of your energy shield as lightning. So for example, I have 5k energy shield. It's giving me about 100 to 2.5k lightning damage. So usually the top end lightning roll is about half of your ES. Then you take this energy blade and you say, I want to make that give me damage for my spell. It starts with spell blade support. This thing can give you up to 140% of your base damage. So this flat damage times 1.4 is added as flat damage to my spell. And then it doesn't stop there. We have Inquisitor, which takes Battle Mage, which gives you 100% of your weapons damage added to your spells. So we get 2.4 times the amount of flat damage on this weapon. For context, if we just do a little bit of math here to showcase this, and I take 120 plus, like, what was it, 2,500, I get the average damage, which is 1,300, and then I get myself Battle Mage, which is 1,300 damage, and then the 1.4 times from Spellblade. You multiply this by 2.4. I'm giving 3,000 average flat damage to my spells. Now, I want to put this in some context real quick, and I'm going to pull up just Fireball, just a generic spell that it's very easy to understand. Fireball has 370 effectiveness. Now, if you look at this skill and you say, okay, how much does that translate to? If I have 3,000 and I'm adding to a 370 effectiveness skill, you're going to multiply this number by 3.7. If I didn't accidentally overwrite it, but we'll just multiply it by 3.7. Okay, so we're essentially, in terms of flat damage that's on this spell, it's going to be about 11,000. For context, when you gem level scale, like this base damage here, 1,600 to 2,400, this stuff goes up, right? So if we go and look at the gem level scale, you'll notice all the way down here at roughly around level 39, if you have a level 39 Fireball, you're dealing about 11,000 flat. So for context, this is a level 95. Okay, it says level 100, but it's really level 95 because I have 5 passives, not a spect. It's a level 95 character, which is trying to have relatively budget gear. And we're going to get a patch. That is very unfortunate for this video. So I'll just keep going until it comes in. But the context is you're taking a level 20 skill and you're giving it the base damage of almost a level 40. And as you min-max the build farther along, as you get more scaling, like this character, I want to stress, is a not super high-end geared character. As you get more invested into it, all of a sudden you're giving base damage that is even higher than you could get on a level 40 skill. So that's the context. It's a super strong way to scale base damage on a spell, and then you take that base damage and you hit the enemy till the enemy dies. That's what's going on here. Now, as for one of the cool things about this character that I want to showcase here is I originally going into this was thinking, even after the nerfs, I was telling myself the Ivory Tower would still be the correct play. So I went ahead and said, okay, I'm pretty sure Foulborn Ghostwrife is going to take the early game. It's just really good early game power. Let's see how good Ivory Tower is with some more investment, and we'll do a little comparison test. So this is an Ivory Tower setup with cast on crit, and I'm going to showcase a bit of the difference here, what this character looks like compared to the last setup, which, mind you, was about a 10 to 20D budget, and I guess Eater wants to try to like teleport around on me. Now he's given me a lot longer time to kill him, so I killed him in the first phase, but if I got that amount of time on the self-cast version I just showcased, I would have killed him just as fast, if not faster. Now for the context, this character, I said, I need a bit higher budget to make Ivory Tower worth it. Well, this character, if you go around the gear, I think is much closer to, I want to say, 50 to 100 divines plus, i.e., I think this is at least 5 times the budget of the character I just showed there. Between our rares, we have life, percent ES, flat ES, strength, unveil. Same thing here with a Vermilion. We have a 500 ES Warlock, or not Warlock, sorry, Lich's Circlet. We have percent strength, or percent attribute, flat strength, life, percent life, res belt. We have a lot of pretty good gear. I'm also using a lot of 3-stat jewels, life, ES, crit multi. This one actually has res. Most of them are life, ES, crit multi, but in the previous PoB, we had 3 stats. As for the character's amount of passive spend, this is actually simulating roughly a level 96, or that's what it's supposed to be simulating. You'll notice there's a bunch of extra passives up here. That is just because I'm trying to simulate the scenario where I grab the four accuracy nodes plus mastery to account for the loss of accuracy on the gloves. But this is roughly simulating a level 96 character with much higher budget. And the thing about this build is this character loses more from the nerfs. So when the int nerf comes in and we lose the percent ES per int, this character is going to lose another 1,000 int, whereas the Ghostwrife character is not going to lose that much. However, the Ghostwrife character still is going to lose something. Foulborn Ghostwrife is getting nerfed from 50 to 40%. So at the top end, instead of being able to roll 15% defense and end up rolling that up to 57%, your ES is equal to 57%. It's going to be equal to 46 on the top end. And I was showcasing Foulborn Ghostwrife with 50%. It is still going to be stronger than this character at the much lower price point. All right, now I'm going to cut the video for the realm restarting and we'll pick up in a bit. Actually, I'm just going to go into PoB so that way I don't waste too much time. I've already spent a lot of the day trying to get this stuff together. So another thing I want to talk about here is I didn't just test the budget version of Foulborn Ghostwrife, which is what this PoB is here, the 10 to 20D setup, versus a 50 to 100D setup. So that's this example cast on crit, which I don't recommend. Comparatively, the one was just stronger than the other. For example, this setup here had like 1k regen, and it was about 10k ES, whereas this setup here, it was closer to 6k net regen, and that's with Righteous Fire on. That was 2k net ES regen and 4k net life regen. It also had higher max hits because it's, you know, a petrified blood pool with 10k life plus 5k ES. So not only did it win offensively, it won defensively. The bummer is it's not cast on crit. If you wanted to play cast on crit, you still have to go Ivory Tower. You still have to go Coruscating, which is why I'm leaving this example cast on crit setup in the PoB, so you can have an example of how you could build it. The reason you can't go cast on crit with Foulborn Ghostwrife is the problem is you would trigger your spells too fast and you will spend your life down to 0, to nada. So that's the main problem. With Ivory Tower, it's fine if you're just burning life because your main defensive pool is your ES. They can't bypass, and it's okay if you're just sacrificing to 1 HP constantly with triggering. Whereas with the Foulborn Ghostwrife, you don't want to outspend your life with the sacrifice mod from Wrathpith, and this character with Spell Echo with the self-cast stuff doesn't do that, and it just works. Now, to talk a bit about why there's a PoB I have in here with 1.3 billion damage, I would like to say this is just something I'm giving as an example of an aspirational PoB, because I'm not league starting this and I want to give people an example of how they can min-max the build if they wanted to and what steps they could take to really push it. Specifically because there's a new item coming in the game that I think a lot of people are going to be like, Lance, how would I make this build with the Shrine Belt? And this is an example of how to do that. Now, Shrine Belts, there's a few unknowns. Number one, we don't know if we're getting Acceleration Shrine. We don't know if we're getting Echoing. I think it's almost guaranteed we're not getting Divine because that's just ridiculous. They've never wanted Immortality in the game, and every time somebody's found like a bugged way to get Immortality, they've patched it or hotfixed it like instantly. So you'll notice in this PoB, we have Echoing and Massive. I personally would recommend Acceleration over Echoing, but you can make that choice for yourself. Basically, Echoing is the highest DPS option. You'll notice it is giving our character, what? Let me go ahead and show all configs Shrine. So if you look at the Echoing Shrine here, it's giving us, you know, 200% more damage, almost like 175, because we are wearing gold, so we get 75 effect on 100% more cast speed. My personal preference would be Acceleration, because this is the best DPS, but Acceleration is going to give you constant feels good, running around, stuff like that. And this damage is just, quite frankly, obscenely overkill outside of Deep Delve or doing the Giga Tank maps on Valdos. So that's kind of what's going on here. This is going to be extremely expensive and I think probably one of the most chased items of the entire league, and probably it's going to outclass Mageblood if they add Acceleration or Echoing Shrine as offensive shrine options. We're going to see how that shakes out, but I made the PoB for it. The biggest expenses for this sort of build, if you want to go for super min-max, is going to be doing the Shrine Belt and then reflecting Helicals and making your Simplex. The other stuff on this character, if I remember correctly, is a lot more reasonable in terms of like what you'd have to do to make it, but that's kind of what's going on here. You can look through the PoB if you're curious about what's going on, but is just to showcase, hey, if you want to min-max this build, there is a lot of scaling to give, and it can be a very strong character late game if you want to do that. Ultimately, I'm making this video as just an overarching guide of Energy Blade, and also I want to showcase it as a good league starter, which is what this setup that is way cheaper by 100 times over. It can give you a good way to get into the game. Now, I want to talk a bit about the pathing for this and what's going on here. The PoB showcases basically a leveling tree, which you'll notice it goes all the way up to campaign. This is what I'd recommend leveling, which is a fire caster leveling setup for Templar. And a lot of people don't like it, but Magma Orb is, in my opinion, the best fire leveling skill to do up until you get to level 28 in Act 3, at which point you can swap to a Armageddon Brand plus Firestorm combo. This is what I recommend for leveling. Do you have to level as this? No, it's just what I recommend. If you level as something else, you'll probably just be a bit slower, but that's what these campaign trees are for. So you're going to level as a fire caster, and then roughly around Act 6, there is going to be heist contracts or heist smugglers caches that will begin to appear. This is your first access point to some consistent currency to get your character some early gear upgrades to set up for doing Sanctum. Because, quite frankly, this early setup I have here, this is very kind of glass cannon-y. It's designed this way so that way you can go into Sanctum and get yourself some earlier currency than you could get otherwise. Sanctum at hour 4 or hour 5 is better than basically any other thing you could be doing at that point in the game because it's just a really good influx of initial currency. That's what this is for. It's for that early push to Sanctum, and then you use that Sanctum currency to buy yourself a Foulborn Ghostwrife, and then you start swapping over into a mapping setup that's more invested into life nodes and some defense and being more well-rounded. Sanctum doesn't need that much defense, and it's really offensive. It has a really high offensive requirement, and that's what this setup is for. The loadouts you can check here are basically the early Sanctum setup versus the early the Foulborn setup and the campaign setup. If you want to swap between items and between your skill gems and all that sort of stuff. So that will be where you'll look for all your skills. As for a proper write-up to the guide, I previously did a note section where I took a decent amount of time and wrote up here, and it was only kind of okay and not very well explained. As I've been added to Mobalytics, I have done a much more effort involved write-up on this end that's a lot cleaner and easier to read. So if you need the written guide, that's what this is for. It goes through all the different setups, and then under each section, if there's a specific higher end craft item, I'll do a write-up on how to craft the various pieces. And that is what this is for. It'll be in the description below, and then this also has the PoB. So if you open up the page, you'll see the PoB code for this right here. If you don't need the written guide itself, that's just where it is. So that gives you access to all the progression of the character. Now let's talk a little bit about skill choice and how the build can do pretty much any spell at once. So I'm going to check real quick if the game can let me log in. It looks like the downtime is done. So I'm going to do a little bit of showcasing here about how you can use whatever spell you want. So I'm going to log into the Keeper's self-cast setup we have here. This build has, as I was saying, a large amount of flat damage from Spellblade. But then on top of that, it doesn't just get flat damage. It also gets a lot of spell crit and spell damage from Wrathpith, as well as a bunch of spell damage from Iron Will, and then tags that all together with some nice increased damage sources like Sanctuary, like Shock, because we're dealing lightning damage, more crit chance from Righteous Providence. You get the idea. That's how it works. Some good amount of generic percent damage from our life scaling. The life scaling also gets us ES from Ghostwrife, and everything's happy. Now, I didn't talk about this specifically yet. Foulborn Ghostwrife, why are we using this? Your maximum energy shield is equal to 50% of your life. This is going to get nerfed to 40%. Why is this mod so impactful? It's because it completely ignores the downside of Energy Blade. So normally Energy Blade says, hey, I'm going to take whatever your ES is and cut it in half. This mod it overrules the cut the energy shield in half. In fact, it overrules all your ES investment. So if I went over here and I grabbed a jewel that said 10 million ES and I was wearing this chest piece, it would still just give me half of my life pool. So what that means is you don't need to put any investment into flat ES. You don't necessarily need to care about int, which int got nerfed. So it ignores the int nerf and it ignores the quality nerf on Energy Blade. Ghostwrife itself did get nerfed by about 20%, so it did take a small nerf, but quite frankly, the scaling on this is so insane, I don't think you'll really even feel it at all. The damage is just kind of nutty. So let's go ahead and showcase a spell or two. So this was Eye of Winter that I showcased killing that guy. Let's go ahead and grab something like Firestorm, and this is kind of like plug and play. So for example, I just swapped out of Eye of Winter, which is a projectile skill, and I'm swapping to an AoE skill. What's the thing I would change? I would take a couple life nodes or a couple damage nodes like this, and I would just say, you know what? I'd rather have some more AoE for an AoE skill for this showcase. Now I'm going to go ahead and do, looks like Chimera is one of the Guardian maps we haven't done. Of course, it's always Chimera because Chimera is always the one I don't want to do. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I want to finish this rotation. I guess I have to do Chimera. But anyways, I could just take Eye of Winter, swap it out, and it's just going to work. It doesn't really matter what hit-based skill you choose. The damage scaling is all completely generic. You can swap from a cold skill Eye of Winter to a fire skill Firestorm. It doesn't matter. We're dealing lightning damage because we have a level 40 skill worth of damage from our lightsaber our character is holding. So that's kind of what's going on there. As for like, depending on what mechanics you want to do, certain skills will just be better than others. Like let's say you want to do a Legion farmer, I would recommend something like Val Arc, because Val Arc can chain through an entire Legion at once. It can pop the whole thing. So that's like one of those things where you look at what you're playing. I'm going to turn off these buffs so I'm not getting like random stuff that's helping me that shouldn't help me. You're choosing your skill based on what type of farm you want to do, or like what type of aesthetic or what type of skill you like. And I guess the maintenance just started. So anyways, I guess we're not going to showcase Chimera. Yeah, that's the point. Swapping a skill, maybe change a support or two. Like if I swapped from Eye of Winter to, let's say, Incinerate of Venting, that's a channeling skill. Spell Echo does nothing for it. Take out Spell Echo, put in Focus Channeling, or put in Infused Channeling, and you're good to go. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit here was you may notice there is a Raise Spectre in most of these setups here, right here. And you might be wondering, Lance, why are there two Raise Spectres? And that's because this is the only way I know how to tell PoB to use the Spectres correctly. And I'm not even sure they're using Spectres correctly, to be honest with you. But anyways, I'll go ahead and showcase this real quick. So what you do is I'm telling PoB, hey, I have a Spirit of Fortune and a Pain Artist. And it doesn't know that there's a limit of 2 and I have 1 of each from the Raised Spectre. So if I turn off one of these Spectres and I go back to my Incinerate Venting, it's taken off some damage because it said, oh, you don't have the ability to have the Pain Artist anymore, so I'm going to get rid of your damage. So that's what's going on there. That's why there's 2 Raised Spectres. In game, you just need 1 gem. You don't need 2. And the reason we're using the Pain Artist and the Perfect Spirit of Fortune is because they give incredible damage. Pain Artist gives you Zealotry, which is 15% more damage and like 40 spell crit. And Spirit of Fortune gives you Wrath, which is like 20% more lightning damage. But on top of that, Pain Artist also gives 30 crit multi. That's more damage. And then Spirit of Fortune gives you Lucky Lightning, which is another 30% more damage. Generally, from my experience, this feels like it's literally double damage when you have these 2 Spectres. Now, you might be thinking, you don't have any minion nodes on your tree. How are they surviving? And the answer is actually their survivability is pretty decent. I did a lot of Uber Shapers, which Uber Shapers is one of the worst fights for Spectres, in my opinion, because there's the clones that spawn and they're just constantly getting hit. And most of the fights, at least one survived, if not both. And the reason for that was, number one, I gave them Elemental Army, Minion Life, and Meat Shield. I gave them a bunch of tank supports. But number two, In this setup, we have a automated convocation, which constantly moves them to you and gives the minions, those specters, it gives them 2% regen. But the important thing here is they're not just getting 2% regen because I am an Inquisitor. An Inquisitor gives this really cool benefit, which is Pious Path, and it makes Conk Ground linger. So when they get teleported on top of me, they get put on top of Conk Ground, which doubles their regen onto their ES pool and their life pool, and then it lingers for 4 seconds. So whenever that convocation occurs, which is like, I think it's faster than every 4 seconds. It might be every 3 seconds. I don't know what its exact cooldown is, but it happens regularly. It ports them to Conk Ground, which gives them like 5 to 6% regen. I think it gives 6% regen or something like that because it's my Conk Ground. So they get not only the 2% regen from Convocation, but more regen from Pious Path. And it's one of the builds where you tag in the Spectres and their survivability is actually fairly decent. And the damage they give is just too insane to ignore. Is it a bit of PoB cheese? Absolutely. There are going to be fights where these Spectres will be dying. But there's also a lot of fights where they live. And they're very, very feels good damage to just have your damage doubled. I am very much becoming a believer in the Spectre 4-link for a nice damage multiplier, especially for a lightning spell build. Pain Artist plus Perfect Spirit Fortune works great. There's some other good there's some other good Spectres, like ones that give endurance charges and onslaught and stuff like that. Those Spectres make the most annoying sounds. I have tried those. They're really good buffs, but they're just annoying as can be in your hideout. So I'm not recommending them. If GGG ends up implementing the fix where Spectres don't make annoying sounds in your hideout and don't drive you insane, then in the future, I'll consider recommending some of those Spectres, like the Perfect Forest Warrior, for example, stuff like that, or the Oak guy, which I'm forgetting his name. But point is, these Spectres that I'm recommending, they don't make like any sounds, and they are a really good damage increase. So that's what's going on with those. Okay, some other thing you'll notice is this PoB, you say it's min-max, Lance, but I only see large clusters. Where are the 1 passive voices? I made a PoB with 1 passive voices, and the 1 passive voices PoB was about 1.5 billion DPS. The thing is, the 1 passive voices PoB, I'm pretty sure was literally like twice as expensive because it had 2 1 passive voices, a perfect large, and it had Forbidden Flesh and Flame Jewels. This PoB took all of those out and we lost 10% damage. We went from 1.5 bill to 1.3. I don't even want to show the 1 passive voices PoB because it's so much less cost efficient. And this PoB, it just works. The 1 passive voices PoB had block jewels, which were required me to attack and cast recently to have the block. This block is pretty much unconditional. There is one conditional, which is the spell cast, which you're always casting. So that one's not really a condition. But the other one required me to shield charge to have my attack block capped. So it was an FF block jewel, which would be extra expense and worse quality of life. So I figured showcasing this one would be better, and I don't want to showcase the 1 passive voices PoB. As for League starting the character, it's going to be all about the Firecaster leveling, swapping over to your Energy Blade setup around level 60. I'd recommend doing a respec to the tree when you're swapping over to that gear after you've done some Heist to get some currency. Speaking of which, I should probably showcase you Heist. Can I showcase you Heist, or is it still down for maintenance? Looks like it's still down for maintenance. So I'm going to cut the video to when the maintenance is done. Okay, maintenance has concluded, and I was going to show you guys an example of Heist, specifically demolition contracts. So one of the fun things about this, see if I have one that's like a low level 1. If I just go over to Heist. So when you League start and you get around Act 6, you'll start seeing Smuggler Caches, which will give you rogue markers and will give you some contracts. The specific ones I would recommend running are Demolition and Heist currency lockpicking. Ideally, Demolition is the most beneficial because it just gives you a lot of raw chaos. So what you'll end up doing is you'll go to this guy here, Wakano. He sells a lot of contracts that are based on your current level, and you type in Demolition like this, and you can go and you can buy these Demolition contracts. If he doesn't have any Demolition, you can also do lockpicking, which is decent. And specifically, you're going to be doing just the question mark rooms is what you want to be looking for. So I'll go ahead and showcase what this loot looks like. And every time you level up, he gets a fresh vendor reset. So you can check as you're going through the campaign, you get a few more rogue exiles, stop by, see if he's selling some demo contracts. This, by the time you're level 60, 65 range, will give you a decent amount of early chaos. 20 to 50 early chaos is very easy to put together with this method. You'll notice here there is a question mark room down here and a question mark room up here. So that's what we're going to, and I'm gonna try not to get lost because I'm not really seeing where I'm going. But anyways, these question mark rooms, they give you, sometimes you get like a stack deck, sometimes you'll get a gem cutter. It'll give you kind of a hodgepodge randomly, but for the most consistent thing you get chaos orbs. And specifically, you're going to want to do these rooms with Vendiri. Vendiri has like a 15% chance to dupe your loot, so he can multiply what you get out of these chests by 2 every 1 in, you know, 7 chests or whatever it is. So let's see, first chest, 2 chaos orbs. That might have been a dupe. I don't know. That might have just been what dropped. My filter's super strict right now, so it's not going to show anything but chaos orbs. So that's kind of what's going on here. I'll showcase another demo contract real quick. Go over here, do this one, or another question mark room. And the main thing you want to keep track of is make sure you have at least a couple hundred rogue markers. This didn't dupe either. You can tell because there's only 1 Val orb on the ground. But you want to make sure you have at least a couple hundred, because that's how much it takes to hire the various basically rogues from the rogue harbor. If you're getting low, you want to go ahead and complete the heist objective right over here, where you actually go in, you get the thing, you take it all the way back, and you sell it for some rogue markers. I'm not gonna do that right now because I don't want to waste too much time, but that's the idea for some early chaos orbs to get yourself a Malachi's Simula, some Calm's Roots, a regular Ghostwrife, or a Foulborn Ghostwrife. It will depend how common it is. I think they'll be relatively common. They'll probably start out somewhat expensive on day 1 and then completely tank by day 2. But you're just using the heist to get your initial chaos orbs to get the first set of gear going. You'll notice on this POB, when you look at the early Sanctum Rush, there's a couple of key items that get you up and running to be Sanctum viable. Khaleesi's quick 5 link. Calm's Heart gets you stun immune. You're very stun susceptible with Ghostwrife, so I prefer to use that. And then you're going to have worse movement speed, so you want to supplement that via attack speed and leap slam. That's why we're invested into these minion attack speed nodes, is just to make our leap slam faster and more fluid to get through those sanctums without too much slowness. You know, if you're just walking around, you're going to be feeling really slow. But the thing is, Calm's Roots, it fixes the stun issue you get with Ghostwrife, so that's what's going on there. Malachi's Simula gets you blood magic and 20% double damage. Huge damage item, fantastic for not needing to have your tree go all the way to blood magic initially. And then Foulborn Lori's lucky lightning damage is good for DPS. So these are kind of your key baseline items. The other items you're getting, these rares, they need to be getting you life and fixing your res. Speaking of gearing the build out, I have put together a buy list like I do for most of my guides. I try to keep this one a lot more streamlined and simple to just the most key items. So you have all the early key uniques here. And then afterwards, you have the rare weighted sum searches. And how do these work? I basically went through and put a filter for a weighted sum for all the valuable mods you could get on an item for this build. And what I would recommend doing is adjusting this weight when you need to upgrade. So initially 200 weight is pretty low. The items that are going to get 200 weight aren't particularly strong. Like, they're okay. Like this ring right here, life, cast speed, cold res, dex, that's an okay ring. But let's say we wanted something better. All you would need to do is upgrade the number here. Increase the number means it's going to show you better items. Decrease the number and it's going to show you worse items. So that's the idea. That's what the weighted sum search is for rares. I'd recommend doing at least one halfway decent piece for all of your non-uniques. Make sure you cap the res. And now let's talk about where you're going to find the buy list. I am going to take this buy list right here, and I'm going to click and export this code. And I'm going to be putting it in the note section of the early Sanctum Rush gear. So if you go right over to here to early Sanctum Rush gear, it's going to be in this note section right here. Better trade buy list, and I'm going to put it in a separate like bar, and what you need to make sure you do when you're trying to copy this buy list, control click, hover the entire thing. You need to make sure you're highlighting all the text or it won't work correctly. Control C, and then go over here to better trading, and you're going to go ahead and import, click, and it should say Energy Blade Inquisitor 19 bookmarks. That's how it works. Better trading works for Chrome. I have it on Firefox due to somebody who made a Reddit post where he compiled it for Firefox. If I find out where that link is, I can put that link in the Mobalytics page here. So if I end up getting that, that's where it'll be. If I don't find it, you can try to Google around and find it yourself. Some guy just compiled it for Firefox. Basically, it's outdated, but it still works. And so, yeah, that's what that is for the buy list. As for running Sanctum early, you may have noticed there was a nerf to Penance Brand Dissipation. Penance Brand Dissipation was the end-all, be-all, best Sanctum skill. It wasn't close, but it got its damage cut in half. And that was enough, in my opinion, to make other options more promising. Specifically, I believe Stormbrand is the new best early option for Sanctum, and I'm going to try to explain why. I know there's posts by Kua, Electro, and a few others saying that Penance Brand is still king. Penance Brand after ramp still has more damage, but the problem is the time it takes for you to get that ramp is quite substantial with that 1 second activation frequency, and it's going to feel very bad early on when you have a weak character without very good. Oh, so it transferred everybody to standard now. So that's what was happening. Okay. So now I'm going to have a much... Okay, never mind. I found him. I found the character I have with the League Start setup. Okay, so yeah. This is the character with the League Start Eblade gear, specifically talking about Stormbrand. So I tested Stormbrand of Indecision. This skill has effectively about 330 effectiveness. Stormbrand, just regular Stormbrand, will actually have closer to 400% effectiveness, which is actually quite good for a skill that you can cast relatively quickly and hits the guards fast. It kills guards fast, whereas Penance Brand Dissipation has a ramp time. It has to ramp all the way up to something like 15 stacks before it starts to deal the same damage as Stormbrand does. So you have this ramp time where Stormbrand would have already killed the guard, so it hits fast, it'll hit the guard and kill the guard before Penance Brand even catches up. And I believe somebody did some numbers in my chat. Who knows if this is correct, but it sounds like something that could be reasonably real, which is he came to the conclusion Penance Brand Dissipation needs to tick 18 times after reaching max stacks for it to equalize with the amount of damage Stormbrand will deal. And at that point, it will start dealing more damage. But that's like a huge duration of time. And until you have insane budget, that is going to be way more time than you want to spend waiting for it to catch up damage-wise. Armageddon Brand has similar like 500-ish effectiveness damage, but it's also kind of a slower hitting, which is why I recommend Stormbrand. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a showcase of what this looks like. It's pretty simple stuff when it comes to doing these Sanctum runs. See if I have a Derelict Caverns here. We'll do this random minor affliction one. Hopefully it isn't too bad. But give you a little showcase of what the build looks like in Sanctum. It's pretty much jump around, Stormbrand on guard, jump around, Stormbrand on guard. I would recommend, if you have not done Sanctum before, look at some of my Sanctum guide walkthrough guides where I showcase how the guards work. Pretty much nothing's changed since my most recent Sanctum guide. And do yourself a favor and do a practice run or two with a setup like this to get a feel for it. It's pretty easy to do the Sanctum once you have a little bit of practice and you know what the rooms are, you know what the afflictions are, but there's a learning curve to it. And if you don't know that learning curve, you're going to click a really bad affliction, or you're going to do something silly like stand in Maven's laser beam thing, which one-shots builds with low chaos mitigation. It's really easy to dodge, but you need to know how the mechanic works and see it coming. So that's what I'd say. Don't start this if you haven't practiced Sanctum at all. Just do a little bit of preparation and you're going to have a good time. So let's go ahead and showcase what this looks like on guards. It's very fast kill time on guards. Granted, this is a level, 70 Sanctum or something like that. Whatever that was, it's like 10-second time for my character to complete a level something Sanctum with a level 70 character. I know it says 28 passives removed. Technically, our life is higher because you do get life from levels. So this isn't a perfect representation of a level 68 character or a level 70 character next league. But keep in mind, Stormbrand is straight up like 20% more damage than Stormbrand of Indecision is, and that's what you'll be using next league. It's just going to be better. Now, I'm going to add this in for my boy Electro because he was like, please, Lance, use Call of Brotherhood. I personally prefer not using Call of Brotherhood because it makes fixing your res and getting life easier and you can be tankier. Personally, I think it's better to kill the guards fast rather than get them frozen. But if you want to play on super easy mode where you don't have to have any ability, you don't need to dodge much at all, this is the play. It'll make it so you freeze guards. So let's go ahead and showcase that real quick. I'm going to brick my res to do this. It's a little bit less damage, but it is a safer run for basically if you're a less experienced player and you have trouble dodging like Electro does, you need to be freezing these guards. So we're going to go ahead and showcase these real quick just to give the context and showcase how the guards get frozen. Your kill time on the guards is slower, but you'll notice like they're getting chilled and they're getting frozen, so they don't respond as fast. But you can still get hit just by misplaying like I did there. And ultimately, I think it's better to just kill the guard faster and have a better tank setup because that kill time matters for the guard shooting you as well as how fast you're getting through sanctums. Personally, I prefer right now with the current sanctum, just do like a couple, buy your early gear like your Foulborn Ghostwrife, you know, swap it on and then go to maps. Mapping is just going to be better currency. There's a little bit of a delay before you start making money from maps, like a couple hours. The reason Sanctum's so good is because it's instant currency right away with what you're doing, whereas maps has a bit of a ramp time to it. But honestly, in the current league, Sanctum produces no gold. You can't trade with Faustus because you have no gold, and you'll make plenty of currency doing mapping. So I would personally recommend only doing Sanctum a little bit. Get your initial Foulborn Ghostwrife, start swapping over to more of the life setup, and just start gunning some mapping and having a good time. So yeah, that's talking about the Sanctum League start. And overall, would I recommend this character? Absolutely. If you are okay with the Sanctum League starter, or if you understand going into maps with just a regular Ghostwrife setup is very, very much on the squishier side of things, and you will need to probably respec a bit of the damage for a bit more defense. This tree on this character is very glass cannon focused because the thing that matters in Sanctum, damage, damage, damage. That's the only thing that matters. Are you one-shotting the guards? If you're going into maps, you have way more damage than you need for maps. Doing 1,000,000 damage by level 70 is insane. Going into maps, you need like 100k DPS to be killing bosses pretty fast. So it's way overkill. Just respec some of the damage, go for more defense, and that's what I recommend going into maps. And it'll be squishy, and it won't feel necessarily great, but it should be good enough if you have a nice like clear skill, and then swap on to Foulborn Ghostwrife and you'll be smooth sailing from that point onward. Once you get this chest piece, you'll be quite tanky because you're no longer cutting your life number in half. So notice how this character goes from 2k life to 4k life. That's the beauty of the Foulborn Ghostwrife, is you don't lose any of your HP. So all the investment where you're going into life nodes and stuff is just pure extra raw tank. And then when you're going to that Foulborn Ghostwrife, instead of going for the bypass res node, you'll be going for Pious Path double ES life regen, and it feels oh so smooth. Combine that with a little bit of block, you're gonna have a good time. So yeah, that's what's going on for the Sanctum stuff and progressing the character. Cutting in here because I'm kind of losing my train of thought on things that I haven't gone over. I think I've covered most of the things on this character. Needless to say, if there are things I missed, I will try to add the details to this Mobalytics guide for the character. If you don't want the Mobalytics, just grab the POB. It's right here. And yeah, that's just the rough plan of the character. I'll try to improve this written guide for things that I forget to cover. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the build. This is the update to the Energy Eblade Inquisitor. It is very, very strong post nerf, and I hope you guys enjoy it. As for what build I am actually going to be playing, I'm leaning towards doing a Relic of Pack Glad, but I need to do some theory crafting on that, and we still haven't seen some of all the rest of the new gems. So yeah, that's what we're looking at for the future. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.